Hello and welcome back to Building with Breven. This is episode 28, and we've got a great topic for you guys, all the listeners. And yeah, we're happy to be back as always. It has been quite the hiatus, and we acknowledge that, but we're happy to be back. And this episode, we actually have my father on. Mike Burns is here with us today, and we're very excited for that. He's always a wealth of wisdom and experience and knowledge on home building and all things home building industry. So glad to have you, Dad. And you want to, yeah, you want to tell us a little bit more about today's topics and kind of touch on what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, there's been a whole lot in the news lately about tariffs and what's going on in the world with possible recession coming up and just a lot of uncertainty. And a lot of people are asking me, is this a good time to build a home? Should you build during a recession? And there's certainly some things to consider, and there's some pros and cons about taking advantage of the recession if there is going to be a recession. But certainly, I think the biggest thing in the world right now is uncertainty, and what do you do in the uncertainty era? And we'll talk about some of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great introduction. And that definitely touches on what we're going to be talking about today. I think it is a twofold conversation, with the first one being those tariffs and the uncertainty around that. It feels like day to day that's flip flopping with the Trump administration and everything else on those tariffs. And so we'll try to touch on that as best we can. And from what we're hearing in the industry day to day, and ordering those materials and talking to those vendors in particular about lumber, for instance, that's been a hot topic. And a lot of the other stuff that is coming from China, such as door hardware and so many things, even Delta faucets and stuff like that. They may
Right.
be made in America, but they're still getting a lot of their parts from China. So, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. We're getting some of our exterior doors even from Mexico. So we're seeing these tariffs from all different angles. And yeah, we're going to dive more into that on this episode. So I think without further ado, let's jump into that first topic of tariffs. Maybe you can update me, Dad. I know you're more in touch with that. But yeah, where do we stand right now? What's the latest on, are tariffs happening or are they not? And
That's the $1 million question, Stephen. Yesterday, there's a 25% tariff going on lumber, and then today there are not, and then tomorrow there will be again, and then there might be a 200% tariff put on lumber. We just don't know. But safe to say that the tariffs across Canada and Mexico and China are going to affect the home building business without a doubt. And when tariffs are levied on products, prices go up. That's going to happen, and it's going to hit probably in next 3 weeks to the next 3 months. You're going to start seeing the prices of a lot of things go up, and that's going to adversely affect the cost of building a home.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, definitely. And I've got two anecdotes on that in particular from recent material orders that we've placed. And the first one was the exterior doors, like I mentioned, from Mexico. Our door vendor fabricates them down there, paints them, does everything, makes those doors in Mexico, and then brings them to Texas. So we're not very far from that. It's easy and has been an easy process until as of late. But he texted me this past week and said, "Hey, we're about to be hit with this 25% tariff on your door that you ordered 6 months ago," or actually not 6 months, about 6 weeks ago. And he said, "Are you okay with waiting until this weekend to see how the tariffs unfold, to see if maybe they get reduced or whatever?" He said, "I think we're better off waiting a couple days or a couple weeks to see how things unfold than rush it right now and pay that 25% tariff that is currently being looked at." So that was one thing. And so, of course, I told him, let's hold the brakes. We don't need the door right now. Let's see how that all unfolds. But it's those kind of conversations that we're having day to day, making those strategic decisions throughout the home build. Now, of course, if timeline was more pressing, then sometimes those are the things we have to just suck up and pay. And whether that goes towards the builder or the the homeowners or the clients is a decision on the contract. So once again, ties back to some of our previous episodes where be sure of what contract you're getting into and cost escalation clauses and all kinds of other things. So
For sure.
something to be aware of. We're not going to dive into that on this episode, but we definitely have episodes where we did talk about that. So we can jump.
And be prepared to pay a cost escalation clause or sign a cost escalation clause, because the builders are scared right now about, if we contract on a home and these 25% tariffs kick in, that home could cost 25% more, and the builder's going to lose money. So don't be surprised if a builder does ask you to pay, or just sign one just in case, kind of not knowing the uncertainty. But
Yeah.
usually with this situation and kind of the buzz of the news right now is a recession happening or isn't a recession happening? The juxtaposition of all this is, during a recession, that's actually a good time to build a home during a recession. However, with all the tariffs, the opportunity to take advantage of the recession might be negated by the additional cost in lumber and all the other products that we get from Mexico, Canada, China, with all the tariffs. So, we have to weigh the opportunities of a recession. We'll talk about the pros and cons of doing that in a minute, but against the increased cost of the tariffs. So,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that piece on the Canadian lumber, that was my second anecdote, was talking to my lumber vendor here in Texas, but they do large volume in Central Texas, and they're a big statewide company. So they're seeing it from a big perspective. They're seeing all kinds of things being factored in right now, not just the talks of tariffs, but not only planning for those tariffs, but also the fear and the preliminary planning that a lot of builders are doing. Some builders are ordering material or lumber in bulk in fear that these lumber prices are going to go up. So they're trying to capitalize on it now. That's actually driving lumber prices up in its own right. It's creating a frenzy, and people are ordering more material. And so with that increased demand, they're able to increase their pricing already. So whether these tariffs do come to fruition, either fully in the 25% range or to some degree in the middle or not at all, we're already starting to see some effects of these increasing prices because of this fear and the uncertainty, like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode. So it's really a multifaceted conversation, and we're seeing it from all of those angles. But in the end, I think a summary on these tariffs from what we're seeing is that prices aren't coming down. And we see that year over year in home building anyways, but especially right now with these talks of the tariffs and everything else going on in the economy, we don't see it as a builder any chance of pricing coming down. So I think the gist of that is that if you're in the market to build a custom home, there's never a time like the present. The longer you wait, the more prices continue to go up year over year. And you look back and say, man, I really should have built my house 2-3 years ago.
No, you're exactly right, Stephen. And housing, short of a bubble like there was in California back in the 08, 09, housing prices only go up. Values of homes go up. A home built 1970 is worth triple, maybe 10x what it is back in 1970. But so when you build a home, as long as you're in it for the long term, the house is going to hold its value, and you're going to make money on it when you go to sell it. As long as you're not trying to flip it, if you're not just trying to speculate, contract on it this year and try to sell it next year, which probably is not a great idea during a recession or during this tariff wars that we're experiencing. But if you're in it for the long term, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Definitely good to have that perspective from multiple sessions or market cycles. And yeah, I think we do look back on history, just like you mentioned, and really we have that one prominent housing recession that we saw in the '07 to 2010 time range. We saw probably the biggest housing crash in history, at least in our lifetimes, I would argue. There's going to be other economic recessions and things like that, but as far as impacting housing to such a negative degree, I think that '07 to 2010 timeframe was really a huge impact on the housing market. So with that anomaly aside, yeah, pretty much year over year, every single year, housing costs and labor costs are going up. And you're right. I mean, getting in the 70s, 80s, yeah, interest rates were extremely high in the 80s, but housing prices were much lower. I think we're
Right.
going to look back on this very much the same in 30, 40 years and say, man, 2020 was such a decade for housing. Interest rates were rising from an all time low, but housing prices were more reasonable now than they will be in 30, 40 years from now. I can only predict. So looking at history and then predicting the future, and nobody knows the future. Nobody has a crystal ball.
No,
But
that's for sure. But it's the housing market's a lot like the stock market. It's a jagged curve. Their prices are going to increase. The values of the homes are going to increase. There may be short blips where it kind of goes down during a recession or a time of economic uncertainty, but it's the curve is going to be a jagged curve on the upward slant. So rest assured, if you purchase a home and you're in it for the long term, you're going to hold its value and make money on that home. And if you hold on to it for 3 to 5 years, I feel pretty certain that you're going to be in good shape.
yeah, I think that's a really good point to touch on a little bit more is that when we're talking custom home building, we're not talking just one specific time where you're buying a custom home in full. I mean, some people are. If you're buying a spec home or a used resale home, you're putting all of that money on the line at one specific point in time, if that makes sense. So you're buying a home on January 31st, 2024 or 2025 or whatever it is. That one date is when all your money is at stake. When you're building a custom home, you spread those costs out over sometimes a year, as low as 8, 10, 12 months, up to 2 years of planning the home, paying for architect fees at the beginning, all that pre-construction stuff we talk about so often, paying that portion up front. And then over the next year of roughly give or take a year of building that custom home, you're paying for your foundation earlier, then your frame, then your sheetrock, and then paint, and then all your finish out, stuff like that. So your costs are spread out over about a 12-month horizon. And then you're absolutely right. I mean, most people that are investing this much resource or this many resources, money, time, effort, decisions, all that stuff into a custom home, it's very unlikely that they're going to go and sell that home right when they're done. If they're really customizing it to their own personal needs, they're probably going to live in it to 3 to 5 years plus, I would argue. And at that point, I would I would be shocked if a recession had hit in the time that they were building, right after they finish the home, and then they're in the red when they go to sell in 3 to 5 years. Most market cycles pick back up within that 4 to 6 year time horizon that we're talking about. And those homes, those new custom homes, are now 5 years old and are probably in the green again after that economic cycle or housing cycle has gone through.
Well said, Steve. I think that is safe to say that if you're in it for the long term and you have a stable job, good finances, a long term outlook, you're going to be fine. Again, you might pay a little more because of the tariffs, but prices generally are not coming down. We've known that in just our tenure of the last 5 years of building homes. We paid what we thought 5 years ago was a whole lot of money for a home, and now we wish we could have those prices back. So yeah, don't try to make a quick dollar on your home, but stability. And most custom builders are, or if you're building a custom home rather, hopefully you're in it for a little longer than just a couple of years, and you're not trying to flip it, you're building it to live in it. So if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do that, you're going to be in good shape 4 or 5 years down.
Yep. Yeah, and we even talked about it right before this podcast episode that if you are in the market to flip homes, of course that's risky. And that's where fix and flips and those kind of things get risky. And for that exact reason, you can't predict the market 6 months from now, but the market can swing and you're planning on buying that home and then selling it rather quickly. Whereas what we're referring to and what we're talking about with custom homes is buying a piece of property, building the home on it over 1 to 2 years or so, and then sitting on it and living in it for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, however long that is. And over that time horizon, you're going to be fine in the market, historically speaking. So, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, and you're mitigating your risk as you increase your timeline, of course, and that's custom home building.
Yeah, definitely. Should we talk about some pros of if a recession were to hit? There are some advantages during a recession to building a home. You know, if you're uh, if people are and builders are stopping building because of the recession, well, that opens up opportunities because materials become available, and as materials become available, the price typically drops. Contractors are looking for work, so they're going to negotiate their price. Labor costs drop. Um, you know, if you're doing it for a long-term investment, you have you know, an opportunity to build exactly what you want at a lower price. So and look, and also an opportunity to look for deals. Some builders are looking to a home that was built on speculation. The builder doesn't want to hold that; they want to get rid of it. So there's an opportunity to buy an existing custom home for probably a deal. So those are some of the things that you might be able to take advantage of during a recession. What I would call the pros of a recession, if there is such a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think another one that we have seen more recently is it's an inverse relationship. I'll start with that home prices and interest rates really are an inverse relationship. And we're starting to see interest rates cooling off just a little bit recently. I mean, with these talks of recession and a lot of uncertainty in the market, whether this all happens or does not, I want to express that too, that we're trying to take the most unbiased approach here and just present the facts and talk about it from what we are seeing in the home building industry. But um, going back to those interest rates, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. There's talks of recession. There's a lot of talks of the tariffs, and that's exactly what this episode's about. But we're also seeing one of the positives coming out of this is that home interest rates are starting to cool off a little bit. Like I said, I mean, you just told me before this episode that rates are down into the low sixes, I think, for the most qualified buyers. So that's definitely a bright light in this that, yeah, I mean, you can get into a home, even if home prices are going to increase a little bit. The interest rates are coming down, so your overall monthly payment is most likely going to be less or about the same, maybe even a little bit more. But yeah, it's that constant flux of interest rates versus home prices.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Stephen. Um, Good points.
And in a recession, I mean, you already touched on it, but there's a lot more room for negotiation. Things cool off. There's a lot of people that are looking for work, which is trades. It's also builders as well. So if you're shopping builders, it's definitely worth talking to a couple and comparing pricing and then even start to negotiate. I mean, this is a good opportunity to talk to builders and really see who wants your business. And I wouldn't go with the one that's desperate for your business by any means, but I would try to, talk to a couple and make sure that you're getting a fair deal for where the market is. Um, but yeah, recessions can be healthy in their own right. They are oftentimes tough times for people, especially if there's job loss and things like that. But yeah, they can also be an opportunity as well.
You're right. They can be looked at as an opportunity in the housing market. So, um, yeah, it's the word recession scares a lot of people, but you know, try to look at it more as an opportunity. And again, we keep saying, Stephen, that you know, if you're in it for the long term, you know, it's a pretty safe bet to buy and build a home during a recession if you're going to stay in it for 3 to 5 years or longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe a fun way to wrap this episode up, unless you have anything else you want to touch on.
Um, no, I think we've covered kind of the recession. You know, we started out the conversation with the only thing certain is uncertainty in the market right now, and nobody really knows what to do. But you kind of play it day by day, and if you see an opportunity, take advantage of the opportunity, and don't be afraid. If again, if you have financial stability, a secure job, and you're in it for the long term, go for it. Build a home.
Yep. Yeah, good thought there. I think a fun way to wrap this up, and I'm going to put you on the hot seat. What are your personal takes? Where do you think tariffs are going to settle? And what do you think? Is a recession coming towards us or is it not? And explain a little bit more on what you're seeing and what you think. This is obviously your personal opinions, and we both don't have a crystal ball. So
Of course,
we'll,
no.
we'll preface with that.
You know, I think the nature of tariffs are when we tariff a country, they tariff us back, and then we increase the tariffs. There's a tariff war going on. It's going to go on for a while. It's not going to be a short end to this. I don't see the United States government just rolling over and saying, okay, we're going to take all the tariffs off. I think this is going to be a battle for a while, maybe the better part of 6 months to a year before things kind of level out and some negotiations start going on to try to cut all these tariffs and this. I think there's just a lot of mudslinging going on right now, which is unfortunate and probably unnecessary. But until they start taking it issue by issue, item by item, I think this is going to go on for a while. I do see a recession coming. The stock market is evidence of that, and something to just be aware of.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I would, jumping into my opinion, I think that you're right. This isn't something that's going to clear up quickly, but it is hot on the news right now. So it's top of everybody's mind. There's a lot of fear in the market, and we're seeing that reflected in, like you said, the stock market most directly. Housing market usually lags the stock market and is a lot slower to turn one way or the other, which is kind of a good thing. It doesn't react quite as drastically as stocks because it's not as liquid as stocks. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to see this drag on for a little while. 6 months to a year is probably a good estimate. And I think the talks of it are going to settle down as it progresses, but it's still going to be a hot topic through at least the majority of this 2025 year.
Um,
I personally think tariffs aren't going to be the full 25%. I think they're going to settle somewhere in the middle, and it's a negotiation. And I think that we're going to see price increases for sure, but nobody knows how much those are going to be. And it's something that, unfortunately, I think we all just have to factor into our day-to-day lives, especially us as builders and working with so many different trades and material vendors and all kinds of stuff. And we're sourcing products from all over the world. There are few industries that can say the same, that pull from so many different countries and so many different resources and materials and all that stuff to get our product built, which is a custom home. I mean, it's probably one of the most product or material intensive things to build. Vehicles could be argued the same way, but yeah, so we're definitely going to see some ramifications of this, but I'm also an optimist too. And I don't think that I don't know that it's enough to tank anything. I think we might see a mild recession here. But who knows? I mean, and I think we have a lot of data nowadays and a lot of smart things such as AI and whatever other resources we can use to somewhat help us through these recessions and economic talks. So I don't know, not that anybody can predict it, but I think some of those tools help you be a little bit better prepared for some tough times that may be coming up. But who knows? I mean, maybe we pull through it. It's been a while since the market has corrected. COVID was a little bit of a correction. And I think I hate to say it, but it's almost like the market's a little overdue for a correction. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll see. And we'll see how everything unfolds.
Yeah, and don't be afraid of the recession. Take advantage of the recession. Again, with the few things that we've talked about, there's opportunities out there, and when people are looking for jobs, prices come down. So keep your eyes out for some opportunities and some values. And if you have again a stable job and you're not looking to do anything quickly, it's actually a pretty good time to build a home because there's a glut of material and a glut of labor, and that all means prices come down, and prices aren't going to be substantially less in the near future. I mean, prices in the home building market only go up over time. So, you're gonna have value into the home in 3 to 5 years. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, good addition there. That, yeah, recession should not equal fear, although there is uncertainty and people don't know, but it's all part of the market cycle. And it takes recessions to have those market booms that we see, and everybody loves when they see their stocks going crazy and their house prices go up and all that stuff. But yeah, it's all part of a healthy market cycle. And
Yeah, take advantage of an opportunity. What follows a recession is a boom. So if you get in on that, you're going to ride the wave up when the market recovers. So
yeah,
don't be afraid.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think we hit the points that we were out to cover today, and this was hopefully a good episode for people that are um, trying to navigate the market right now and make those decisions on, do they build their custom home or not. And I think, like we said, there's never a time like the present. So yeah, move forward and with some more confidence, I guess. But that's what we're seeing in the market, and hopefully it helps some people. So
Yeah.
thank you to all of our listeners. Like I said, we're happy to be back from our hiatus, and happy to have my dad on the podcast today. And if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast. It helps us a lot. Leave comments if you can on whatever platform you're listening to, and then give us a like if you can do that as well. So reviews, all that kind of stuff helps us, helps spread the word, and helps us get in front of more people that we can support and educate on the process of building custom homes. So thank you to all of our listeners, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.